Well, a very good afternoon to all of you who is joining us for a webinar today. My name is Bhavna Duggal and I am here representing the SIUK team. And first and foremost, thank you everyone who has joined us for a webinar and welcoming students on YouTube and pages and counselors and faculties from the institute who actually have taken out time and investing your time during this pandemic. So on that note, few of you may not know what SIUK is all about and perhaps what we do. Just a quick introduction on SIUK. Well, we are a global organization with its presence spread across 50 countries, and we are official representatives of UK universities. So we assist students across the globe to seek admission in the top universities with our premium servicing. So in case you need extra information on our services, requesting everyone to visit our website, that's www.studyinuk.com. And don't forget to subscribe our channel. And so on that note, yes, I would like to introduce Ms. Pritika Malik and Mr. Robert and our key speaker of the webinar today, Dr. Charles Knapp. He's from Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering and from University of Satellite. And he leads an internationally recognized One Health research and training program, embodies interdisciplinary approaches to attain optimal health for humans, agriculture, and the environment. And he's also director of the Environmental Engineering MSc program, including the distance learning mode of study, and has been frequently nominated Best Teacher for instruction, quality, classroom experience, and student support. So thank you so much for being here today. And we are not able to thank you enough for having you here and helping students to choose right career in civil engineering. So SIUK team and Panipat Institute welcomes you here. And now the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. So my name's Robert Graham and I work in the faculty office within the Faculty of Engineering. And before I pass over to our keynote speaker, Dr. Charles Knapp, I'll give you a quick introduction. And again, apologies for the late start here. I was getting mixed up with my times across the globe. So good afternoon to everyone and good morning from Scotland. Okay, so before I pass over to Dr. Charles Knapp, I'll give you a quick introduction to the university that we're part of, the faculty, and just some of the key points. Okay, so University of Strathclyde, over 200 years of tradition, founded back in 1796. Okay, at the moment we've grown to become Scotland's third largest university and one of the leading technological universities in both Scotland, the UK, and the rest of Europe as well, okay? And that's indicated by our various rankings, which I'll touch on later. Okay, so here are some of the key facts within our university. Very recently, we won a number of awards through the Times Higher Education, and most recently, again, we were the University of the Year just last year, and that's the second time we've won that in recent years. So something that we're very proud of within the faculty, departmental wise, and across the whole university as well. Okay. Now you can see in this slide the key subjects that we study. Of course, today we'll be focusing on civil engineering, which is within the engineering faculty. Okay. So before I go any further, just a little bit about the campus investment, which affects the faculty and the wider university, but all to ensure that students get a very good student learning experience and social experience as well. And this is indicated with our new 60 million learning and teaching hub, which we are actually still working on and still aiming to have open in 2020. Obviously, there's been a delay with the COVID-19 situation. However, it's still been worked on. And also within the faculty, we're working on new multi-million pound refurbishments to ensure that your safety is paramount and that all the campus is getting invested all the time to ensure that the facilities are to a high standard for yourselves. Okay, so where are we in terms of Scotland and Glasgow? This map here gives you an indication of our campus, which is in the dark blue colours. This is very much in the heart of the city of Glasgow, okay? So it means that you're very close to our train lines. Our international airport is about a 20-minute journey from the city centre. Within the centre as well, there is lots to do in terms of shopping, also modern art galleries as well, and many green parks as well for you to relax in. Okay, so very easy to get around the city of Glasgow, and somewhere that you'll find very friendly on your first visit. So some key points here as well in terms of Glasgow. So this image here shows is George Square, okay, which is very much the centre of the city. On the left-hand side, just at the back, there's the brown brick building. So that is the Royal College building, which is part of the Faculty of Engineering. So that gives you an indication of how close we are to the city centre. Glasgow in itself, again, we're very famous for music events and shopping as well, and a very vibrant nightlife and food and drink as well. And hopefully, as we come out of our phased lockdown within Scotland in a very safe and secure way, within the COVID situation, there'll be more and more availability for what students can do. Scotland as well, of course, we're based in the country of Scotland, so Scotland's slightly smaller to India, of course. We have a population of just over 5 million and very much a hub for international students. At the moment, we've got over 50,000 international students already living and learning in Scotland, and more than 50,000 students from over 180 different countries choose to study in Scotland each year. So it's very much a destination.
Robert,
Hi,
your slides are not advancing.
Okay. So let me try. Has that one moved on there, Charles?
No, it's stuck on the original page.
Okay. I'll stop sharing and then I'll share again and see if that works. Okay, again, I think there was a slight technical hitch there again. So I think my slides are working again. So this is now the key rankings for the University of Strathclyde. And so that shows a number of the different areas. Now, civil engineering is consistently in the top 10 in Scotland and very highly ranked in the UK as well. Okay. Charles can speak a wee bit more about the specific elements of civil engineering and industry, but these are just a selection of some of the companies that our students go on to work for once they graduate, and also some of them work for them during placement times as well. So again, you recognise a lot of the companies there, both within the UK and worldwide as well. So international focus within the university and within the faculty. We as a faculty have almost 1,000 international students. Many of those students are students from India, which is a very popular place for where we go to recruit students, because we've got Strathclyde as an institution has got a very good reputation in India, and something that we're trying to build on as we move on as well. And we are delighted to welcome many students from India each year into our undergraduate and postgraduate taught and postgraduate research programs as well. I won't dwell too much about international scholarships, but this is just an indication that each year we have the worldwide international scholarships across the faculty for international students, which are 15% of the tuition fee, okay? Now, before I pass over, I also just wanted to mention the mentoring and support, which is very crucial at this time, of course, within where we are in the COVID situation. Now, I don't think I'm speaking to many students that are planning on coming this year, but I think it's important that I mention that we are working very, very hard at the moment to make sure that we have our campus ready as we move from online to a blended learning in terms of how we're offering our teaching to forthcoming students. But this means that we're making sure our campus is safe and secure for our students and staff. And we've worked very tirelessly on that, following government advice and also making sure that the campus itself and the labs are extremely safe as well. And also within our mentoring support, we have a number of areas such as a career service as well, and student advisory and counselling services. Okay, so I'm now going to pass over to my colleague Charles, who's going to tell you more about his department.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Robert. Another introduction of myself actually is give you a sense of my background. I have my undergraduate degree is actually in economics and business. Then I went into ecology for my master's, and ultimately went into environmental engineering for my PhD and my postdoctoral experience. So a lot of people kind of look at me and it's like, so what are you? Well, truthfully, it's hard to say. I'm both an economist, I'm an ecologist, I'm an engineer, a bit of a scientist and all that. And the relevance of this is what will be the basis of my talk is basically, what is a civil engineer? Basically a civil engineer is somebody who keeps society going. And often, as I'll demonstrate, it doesn't take a single tool or a single discipline. Rather, it takes a lot of different types of people and people who can actually communicate and understand people from different backgrounds. But anyways, also, as Robert was saying about the university phasing in, I'm actually one of the first people to return, and actually we're phasing in more and more. It's actually quite nice. Actually, the corridors are starting to fill up at a safe level. So we are seeing more people returning. But basically, we have resumed our research. I actually work on the COVID-related virus, so I was actually one of the first ones to return. But anyways, for the talk, go ahead, advance. What does civil engineering involve? Next slide. Basically, as I said, civil engineering is engineers who basically make society happen. Basically, they keep the communities, the cities, and all that functioning in a manner that will make it safe and productive for the population, as well as also protecting the environment and to also improve the economy. So, but anyways, in order to make this happen, we really need to transcend a disciplined approach to education and to our background. We have to basically step up from being disciplinary to multidisciplinary to actually interdisciplinary. What I would like to challenge is actually become transdisciplinary. So basically what you're breaking down are these little barriers that define you, but rather you become a person who solve things. And it becomes a little more difficult to classify oneself, I'm a such and such engineer, or I'm an analytical chemist or a microbiologist. Rather, you basically, I have this skill set, I have this knowledge, I can call upon others as needed, and we can solve this problem. But anyways, advance a slide, please. For example, in our department, we are civil engineering. We're also environmental engineering. But in our department, we actually encourage and foster staff members from chemical engineering, biomedical engineering, mechanical engineering, And we also have scientists like the chemists, hydrologists, epidemiologists, geographers who go on to the social side, or the economists. We have people who have backgrounds in law. And myself, I'm actually a microbiologist. But anyways, you can see where this can kind of seem a bit confounding. But what we do is actually train students and we encourage them to actually take classes from various different people with these instructors from various different backgrounds. In that sense, you'll get a diversity in training, but you basically are putting on different thinking caps. And I'll demonstrate to you in this lecture is basically how does that become advantageous to the profession. Next slide. So, I mean, instead of just being a person with multiple hats, ultimately, I like to say you're becoming a dynamic engineer. You're becoming a problem solver, a dynamic thinker, someone who can actually get placed into a different situation and be able to readily adapt and solve whatever is needed. A lot of companies these days, for example, my cousin works for one of the filming industries. They basically will not hire a person unless that person is smarter than the boss. Because otherwise, how is the company going to evolve or progress or become world leading? And on the other side of it, a lot of companies, for example, Google, they don't care what your IQ is. They want to learn. They want just a person who has a learning coefficient, someone who is capable of learning, adapting to whatever situation may appear. And for example, this coronavirus. I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. Next slide. Yeah, a little quote that came up is like, if you're trained in one discipline and given a hammer, everything resembles a nail, but not every problem is a nail. Sorry about that. Go on, next slide. So for example, to help facilitate this, our department actually have a board of directors. Basically, it's an industrial advisory board. These are the business leaders, the entrepreneurs of Scotland and the United Kingdom, and they basically come in on a regular basis and they advise us and guide us in terms of curriculum development, learning, teaching, and making sure that what we are presenting to the students are actually important and are needed in industry today. Next slide. We would like to see is people, given projects and actually kind of work rather independently, but also dependently, because you have to learn to kind of work in groups. But we provide opportunities for students. We have like 150 different industries who subscribe to this. It's the independent study and collaboration with industry. I think this is truly a wonderful opportunity for students, because not only do you get a chance to actually work with industry, which is kind of a transferable skill in itself, but you actually learn problem solving skills, project management, time management, all these things, and communication are transferable skills that go beyond what is taught in the curriculum. And that's what industries expect. And not to mention, you can probably put on your CV, I did a project with such and such company. For example, I had students who basically, worked with Bam Nuttall, which is a construction firm, on how to reutilize their waste concrete. And the lady here worked with a company which did not want to be revealed at the time, but basically develop a strategy to promote sustainability. What they do is sustainable and good for the environment. So she created a means so the company can actually broadcast and advertise themselves as being quite green. Next slide. But more importantly, it gives the students exposure. So having them work with industry from the beginning kind of gives them opportunity for exposure and networking. This lady here, actually her background was in history. She was in my environmental engineering program and as a master's. She was tasked to basically figure out what the pollution levels are and what are the source of the pollution in the River Clyde, which flows into through Glasgow. UK had its industrial revolution 100, 200 years ago, and there was a lot of pollution, and that just gets embedded in the sediment. Now the Clyde is improving and fish are coming back and all that, but obviously we were kind of worried about what's trapped under the sediment. Rather than going out collecting samples, she took a very unique approach. She went out and talked to the people in the communities. She was going to museums, she was going to libraries, and she was looking up in history records and got a very good sense as to who were present at this time, who are likely to be producing the pollutants, and actually was able to name companies that were responsible. Civil engineering program, historian, she solved the problem in such a rather unique way that this gentleman offered her an interview on the spot. He's an environmental consultant, intrigued with the brilliant novel idea of tackling this problem, offered her an interview. She never came back to me whether she got a job, but it sounds like it was a pretty good opportunity. Next slide. I mean, so we do, we would like to see engineers, obviously to have the hands-on experience, such as field work. The hydrology students, or hydrogeology students, for example, they work with Stantec, an environmental firm, and also the British Geological Survey, and they do help with the surveys of aquifers in basically various regions of Scotland. So they actually go out and work on the field with companies and government agencies and do actual practical things. And that is something that I think curriculum in universities ought to foster. Next slide. In terms of our own, department, I mean, we basically have, civil environmental engineering, we have three basically streams or centers. We have, the geosciences, geomechanics, environment, and intelligent infrastructure. We actually don't like to have centers because actually we pride ourselves is that our research actually breaks these bubbles and actually become mixed. But the university wants us to have research centers. But anyways, next slide. Some of the projects, that we have ongoing and just demonstrate how important it is to be interdisciplinary. We got projects looking at the Ganga and the Yamuna River. Basically, it's a engineering problem, obviously treatment of the waste, treatment of the water, and basically the human protection of health and environment and all that. Basically, we looked at antibiotic resistance. That means we had to be environmental engineers looking at wastewater treatment. We had to be microbiologists to look at resistance traits, how this genetic material gets transferred amongst microorganisms. We need to be chemists to look at the chemistry. We also needed people who are capable of looking at the economic impacts and the social impacts, because obviously these rivers are very important globally. Next slide. This is actually more of the focus on the Yamuna. This is actually a project where we actually are working with petroleum companies. We're not just going out looking at rivers and trying to say, oh, we're finding this petroleum product and shame on you. Rather, we are working with the companies and we're saying we're finding this, how is it getting there? And we're actually trying to find preventative measures of actually keeping the river, from becoming contaminated. In this aspect, I mean, we basically need people, who have a pretty good business sense. We need part of the project actually is a petroleum engineer who actually understands the processes and actually can provide good insight as to where the compounds are coming from, as well as protecting the rivers. Next slide. IIT Bombay has a landfill, and they have a surrounding area, basically, the mangroves, which are very important to biodiversity and environment. But the problem is that obviously they got an overly subscribed landfill, more waste is going in. They have minimal ways of actually dealing with it. One of the things they have to do is collect the leachate and treat it, but they can't dispose of it, so they just reapply, which ultimately concentrates it. But what we're doing is looking at ways of taking minerals, geological materials, and actually using those to help pre-treat the waste, because they're just getting stronger in strength in terms of salinity, metal content. But looking at minerals, clays, to pre-treat, and then ultimately get levels low enough so that the leachate could be biologically treated. So we've been examining strategies related to that. Obviously, that transcends many different scientific boundaries. Next slide. We do air pollution monitoring. That involves, people who understand aerosols, environmental modeling. Also, we have involved our epidemiologists, because the pollutants that get in the air actually are mobilized, but we have to understand what the impacts are on the people. So this is epidemiology as well. And we do have on staff an epidemiologist. Next slide. In some areas, particularly, along the eastern shores of Chennai, there's an erosion problem. We got engineers and others working in collaboration with IIT Madras, looking at basically, solving the shifting sand problem on the eastern coastlines. Next slide. Nuclear safety and resilience. Obviously, there's a lot of concerns about nuclear safety, but more importantly, we also want to have nuclear power plants that are not only just safe, but also quite resilient. Resilience is not just the ability to resist damage in terms of a crisis, but also to prolong their operation life. As more energy is being demanded, we could build more power plants, but sometimes maybe if we can find ways to make existing power plants last longer or have higher productivities. So obviously, got a team working on that in collaboration with various agencies in India. Next slide. And particularly looking at things like, modeling for the improved safety, but online monitoring, distance monitoring, that's actually becoming a very common topic these days, particularly with the coronavirus. People are expected to work more distantly now. If there's ways of actually monitor things and run things, from home, for example, that might be the way things are going. But ultimately, they have developed, for example, a digital twin, a virtual reality training, and a modeling. Linked with the modeling is ways to actually look at ideas and preparing it for performance. Next slide. I mentioned the coronavirus. This has opened a lot of opportunities. I know it has basically, put a lot of concerns and created a lot of problems, but as well, problems also become opportunities. Next slide. Obviously we have to do the social distancing, and we have a lot of concerns about, transportation, getting people mobilized and, allow basically the economy and jobs to go forward and all that. Is there always an engineering solution? Probably not, but sometimes it's a social solution. Simply just training people, to cover their faces, avoid touching their faces. This guy is failing to do that, but so am I. Something I have to learn. But anyways, having the kind of the insight and just the ideas, I was like, instead of constructing barriers everywhere, find ways to actually just train people and change their behaviors. Not just for the coronavirus, but that could be for waste management. That could be for any aspects of engineering. Next slide. I mentioned remote working, remote monitoring. So we basically have this intelligent infrastructure design. So we are creating structures. We're embedding them with sensors and nanomaterials, which will chemically react or create signals that can actually go through basically radio frequency and then be transferred and have this continuous monitoring. Now, obviously that's an engineering solution, but on top of that, it's an information management issue, because now you're getting, I don't know how many millions of data points at a given time, but basically you'll have to manage that information. So now that becomes a modeling. It becomes information management and interpretation. Next slide. And the whole idea with the coronavirus, you've probably been hearing that a lot of people are monitoring wastewater. Well, that could be a way of, for example, of, instead of looking at wastewater for entire cities, maybe find ways to monitor sewers. And basically, instead of shutting down cities, find ways to actually shut down neighborhoods or isolate buildings. And so we actually have a project where we're actually trying to do that, is actually create finer details and monitoring strategies. So instead of shutting down entire areas, maybe a little bit better, just small areas, small pockets of people. Next slide. And so I work with a biomedical engineer, and I was the microbiologist, and I also work with electrical engineers. We're basically creating these little chips that can be put into sewers, and we can actually monitor whether the virus particles are actually even present. So we'll send a detection, oh, we find something, and we'll send a signal, and we got an early warning system that there's a problem. And almost immediately, we can just say, it's this building, this neighborhood, shut it down, isolate, whatever is needed, instead of waiting for it to infect thousands of people and have a major problem in the city. Next slide. So civil engineers, as I said, they are the designers, the creators, the connectors of the world around us. They're the people who build our communities and keep it running. And no problem is a single discipline. I would like to challenge you as students is actually when you pursue your studies, get out of your comfort zone, try new things, take new classes, and see what happens. This is where the creative ideas come from, the innovations and the new ideas can actually be quite productive, but also probably quite financially rewarding as well. But anyways, challenge yourself, continue to learn to learn, adapt, all that. Thank you very much. Suppose I can take questions if anyone has any.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Charles. That was very informative. And let's see how many questions we have received till now. All right. So first question from Shruti. What are the employment prospects for this course and for civil engineering? And what have previous graduates gone to do?
A lot of the graduates, in general, I see them, they're going into consultancies, basically, and there's some industries as well. There's a construction industry that I just mentioned that tends to get a lot of our graduates. I've seen them go into environmental protection agencies. I have seen some students actually return home to their original companies, and some of them are actually working for ministries, and some of them are very high up. We have actually 2 recent students who are ambassadors, interestingly, but yeah, it varies truthfully. It's hard to say. I know a few that actually have started their own businesses. Part of the program that we have is actually we have an environmental entrepreneurship, and we get probably about 30 students every year, and I'm almost certain that 2/3 of them are starting up businesses. Some of them are actually getting national attention. In fact, we have a French government, not French government, but a French media company coming back to Strathclyde next week, and they're filming one of our recent graduates because he had this wonderful idea of converting shorelines that tend to have high salinity. And he has created a strategy of planting vegetation to help remediate. But if anything else, the vegetation actually is an economy itself because he's now able to grow things on what is salty soil. So it really does vary but I would say the top one is consultancy. The second one is industries. And then third is, agencies. But below all that is probably hundreds of businesses that are actually started up. Any other questions?
Any other questions just now?
Sorry, yeah. So next, thank you for the answer. And next question is from Nayan. Please share details on where students do their internship.
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Can you say it again?
Where students can do their internship.
Can do their...
Was that where students can do their internship?
Yes, I mean,
Yes.
Okay. There's no internship per se, but I assume that means the independent study.
Yeah.
A lot of them actually, what they're doing is they're given a problem. They're not required to be working at the industries, and in most cases, they don't, because actually, a lot of times it's things that they can kind of do on their own, and also some of them might be lab based, or providing some analysis, or maybe getting some information where proximity to the library is helpful. But some of them have worked on site, but with the coronavirus, most likely it's going to become a bit more regulated. I would say probably 90% of them actually don't work on site, but just remain on the university. This is a full year class, so it's about as long as a normal class, but basically prolong it as a really thin class that for longer duration. So basically they just work a couple hours each week. 10 credit class expects about 100 hours of effort. Most people just spread it over probably about 8 months. So it's not much of a, per week demand. So there's really no reasons to travel out.
All right.
But importantly, they do communicate and are in constant contact with the industrial sponsor.
All right. Thank you for the answer. And next question is, what are the qualifications required to become good structural design engineer internationally, and also for wind engineering, which is used in concept of Burj Khalifa?
Okay, I caught the first one is what's required to become a structural engineer. That is basically defined under the Institute of Civil Engineering in the UK. So that is actually an undergraduate study, and then a year's worth of post-graduate study, which could be an MSc to become a chartered engineer. But obviously it can also be, undergraduates and then number of years of experience and, basically continued learning. And so with experience, they can actually get the chartership, but that's defined by the Institute of Civil Engineering, which is basically the charting body for the UK. There are others throughout the world. I know there's American varieties, but I'm only familiar with the UK version. And what was the second half of that question?
Well, qualification required for wind engineering, which is used in the concept of Burj Khalifa.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Was that wind engineering?
Yes, wind engineering.
That's probably more on the mechanical engineering side of the university. So I'm not familiar with that, unfortunately.
That would sit under, we've got like various streams of sustainable engineering, and we've got wind energy, which those come within either electronic and electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. But myself and Pratika can pass on further details on that.
Right. Thank you for the answer. And the next question is, how do you select applicants and what aspects do you look for in an applicant? Basically, how do you select applicants and
Okay. Our program, or basically our master's program, actually consists of about 6, 7, I've kept to count through them, different programs. We have environmental engineering, which actually is also environmental engineering science. So we kind of, if you have any background in science or engineering or mathematics, that tends to be the prerequisite for that. We have civil engineering, which comes with about 3 different streams. We expect it as a good foundation in engineering. But we also have sustainability and environmental studies, which we will accept anybody from any background. We have environmental entrepreneurship. Again, that's in collaboration with the business school. Again, we can accept anybody with any background. And we have also is hydrogeology, and generally with that, it's just the sciences, geology, and things like that. If you have an engineering background, that basically opens a lot of doors. But if you don't have an engineering background, there's options in our department as well. And a lot of the classes that are offered for one master's is actually our electives for others. So you can actually customize and basically tailor your education the way you want. So we have people who don't have engineering backgrounds actually do attempt some of the engineering classes. They might have to do some pre-study, maybe, do a little extra reading, but, same thing could be about engineers wanting to take a policy or a law class. We do provide those opportunities. So acceptance, well, we can almost accept anybody into the department. Some programs might have some prerequisites, but will be the civil engineering, environmental engineering, the others, not so much.
Yeah, and going to the specifics for qualifications from India, we usually look ranging from 55 to 60% and higher for students to achieve that in their undergraduate studies. If they're a little bit below that, we can look at on a case-by-case basis, and then obviously they'll put their personal statement within their application form as well, and then we just look at evidence of English, which is predominantly usually IELTS, or from many of our students from India, we can look at their high school grade in English as well. So it's relative. That's the main things, academic wise, and your evidence of English language in order to get that offer. And then depending on which program you want to go will dictate what your background has to go. But again, to emphasize what Dr. Charles is saying, the good thing about civil engineering is we've got a range of different programs that offer entry for students from non-engineering as well as engineering backgrounds, so very flexible.
Thank you.
Okay.
And next question is, what about expenses? Basically, student would like to know about cost of living and cost of fee structure, and in the day.
Yeah, I can get that. So the tuition fees at the moment for the 12-month PGT, you're looking at just over £20,000. As I mentioned in my part of the presentation, we've got a standard scholarship of 15% for our postgraduate programs. That brings your fee down by about £3,000 in terms of tuition fees. In terms of your annual budget out with your tuition fees, for the 12-month program, you're budgeting anywhere, about £9,500 and upwards, and that includes your accommodation and your general living costs and any transport costs as well. But we only really give an approximation on that, because obviously the more you do, the more you travel, the more you're going to spend. And in terms of earning extra money while you're in the UK on your student visa, you can work up to 20 hours per week during term time. We don't recommend that you do that for the full 20 hours because that takes away a lot of your time to study. So students many of the time will work during term time up 8 to 10 hours per week, and that's usually casual work in a local, shop or retail outlet. So there's lots of opportunities because Glasgow's based, Strathclyde is based right in the heart of the city centre. Upon graduation, we are happy to say that the new graduate route is going to come back into place. That's a UK government initiative which enables students upon graduation from 2021 onwards, they will be able to work for, extend their visa and get a work visa for an extra 2 years. So that it's similar to the post-study work visa that we had a number of years ago. So that's coming back into play, and that has always been a popular option, particularly for our students from India. So there's a range of different ways to supplement your income while you're studying, and then now we've got that added flexibility and opportunity for continuing to work in the UK. Okay.
Thank you for the answer. And in continuation of this question, student would like to know about the scholarship and the bursaries available in the university.
Yeah, so I'll just re-emphasize again the most standard scholarship for international students is the one we have, which is it's the Faculty of Engineering Excellence Scholarship. If you want to have a look, just for some information at the moment, it's advertised on our website. So if you just go on our website and type in Engineering Excellence Scholarship, you'll see all the information on that. It's very straightforward to apply for, and that it means that you get 15% off your tuition fee. So that equates to just over £3,000. We do have this year, we have a select amount of slightly higher ones, which are 5,000. So that's for students usually with a 2-1 or a first from their undergraduate studies. We've not had them allocated for forthcoming sessions, but there's a good chance there will be additional slightly higher scholarships, but the most common one is our 15%. Okay.
Thank you for the answer. Yeah, and let's wrap up the session now. And thank you so much for being here, Dr. Charles Knapp and Robert and Ms. Pritika. And it was a wonderful and very informative session. And thank you everyone for participating in the webinar today out there on YouTube. And thank you PITE Institute for participating with us today. Thank you everyone. And is there anything else you would like to add?
No, but thank you very much for the opportunity, and
Yeah.
Sorry for the slight delay, but
Yeah.
always nice to talk to everybody.
Thank you for joining us. I thank on behalf of PITE Institute. And I have a small query. As I have completed my doctorate degree and looking for some postdoctorate. So what are the procedure, like we can opt for postdoctorate there?
Postdocting, I mean, I know there's have been a lot of financial opportunities, between United Kingdom and Indian researchers. I don't know what the status is of a lot of them because of the coronavirus has put things on hold.
Yeah.
And things are beginning to emerge. I am seeing some opportunities coming about now, and people are applying in hopes that, obviously the application process takes time anyways, that things will improve in 6, 12 months. And there's also contingencies now being in place that in the event that there is no travel, then we'll honor that the work can be done independently in each area. So I would say things are opening up. Don't discourage yourself from it. But obviously I think things were put on hold 6 months ago, and I think we're now starting to recover from that. Look at things like the British Council. I know they're going to be restructuring, but others like the Newton related funds are good postdoc opportunities.
Okay. Thank you everyone.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating and thank you for extending this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.